to be here this morning to share with you my thoughts, my experience, and my journey into University 3.0, especially in the context of COVID 3.0. Right. I want to thank, first of all, John Wiley and Sons for the kind invitation and this platform for me to reach out and to share what we can learn, the lessons that we can pick up, and also what we can do for our own institution to help our stakeholders, our students, our colleagues, faculty, as well as our administration in a way to respond to what we can do today and how we can look forward to what we can achieve in the near future. So with that, let me proceed on with the topic. The outline that has been given to all of you is in 5 points. I will not be going through it in a systematic order, but those are the these are the 6 points in which I will cover. I think all of us are wondering, what will happen after COVID, and is this something new, or is it something that we need to think about anew? So one good way is always to look across the industry. There are people who may have done it earlier, before us already, and so based on that, we can learn lessons of their journeys, and this is what I want to do. My experience in e-learning, started way back. Before e-learning was there, I was a faculty member at NTU in Singapore. I joined in 1987. And it was just at the time that, the internet was just beginning. I remember I was quite excited, by the fact that I was given a PC, on my first day of joining. And that was something that was very new at that point in time, where on the first day you join, there was a PC on the desktop. Soon after that, we were able to connect to the internet. In those days, we called it BitNet. And of course, from BitNet, that linked the academic and research institutions, we are able to link up to the rest of the world through the internet that was made available commercially and publicly. Soon after that, when the World Wide Web was founded and made available to the public, there was an explosion of services that was available to the whole world, right? So internet, from research, military, and academic, became available to the whole world. And with that came many applications, and of course, in the rise of social media. It was in that point in 2000, that NTU, as well as many institutions around the world, started looking into e-learning. And so in 2000, we launched the campus e-learning service. We call it Adventure, and it was through there, that we were able to have an experience for all our students to go into e-learning. So we were one of the starters globally, although in Singapore we probably were the last to go on board, but that was a good start. And of course, with the fast growth of the internet, when more and more services came available, we began to explore what we call platforms. In other words, e-learning was not just an app. So in the early days when we started e-learning, it was just the learning management system. Like Blackboard, Moodles, D2L, Canvas, which some of you are familiar with. So from Blackboard or from the LMS, we started adding other services. We started putting video recording of our lectures. We have e-assignments, plagiarism detection system using tools that will enable academic integrity. And so with the platform, we realized that we were onto something, because as more and more services centered on learning became available to the community, we realized that, we were in a way creating or defining a new experience. And we call the experience University 2.0, right? So 2.0, we feel like evolved, and we recognize it, and we give that label. We have published some papers, that I can refer to later on to talk about how we came up with this thing. In 2013, I left the university. I joined Kaler's Education Group, and it was useful at that time because, from being in a focus area on education in e-learning, at Kaler's Education Group, I was a chief learning officer. And it was there that I looked beyond just the platform. I looked beyond just what the services were available. And this was where I realized that, coming up and looking at the campus-wide picture at the whole ecosystem. Yeah, because Taylor's had institutions that was in the schools, in the college, as well as in the university. So that gave me, if you like, a very holistic, wide view of what was happening. Right, and it was here at this point in time that we also recognized and saw, Industry 4.0 fast, making its presence felt with IoT, with robotics, with AI, blockchain, quantum computing, and big data, and so on and so forth. And it was at this point in time that we saw a shift in the expectation of the employers. We saw a shift in the industry. So just as the PC and internet created new industrial revolution, the availability of these new technologies of AI, blockchain, robotics, quantum computing, IoT, will result in what I recognize now as the new platform called University 3.0. Right, and this University 3.0 is the topic that is something I think emerging very quickly. Is something that we need to think about. Now, many of us in the own campuses may be wondering, hey, where are we? Are we at University 1.0, 2.0, 3.0? Well, not to worry. What's important is to realize, the bigger picture, and in your own campuses, to plot your own journey, right? Some of us may be in different stages of this concept of UCD 1.0, 2.0, or 3.0. It doesn't matter. The important thing is to know where we are, and then think about and envision how we can move forward so that we are able to, at the end of the day, and very importantly, play a role in society. That is ultimately what it is. It is not the labeling that's important, but what is our contribution as a faculty, as a teacher, as an educator, in the context with fellow educators, so that together we are able to serve the students who come across our campus. In the 3 to 4 years that they are on our campuses, we're able to, if you like, prepare them so that they can contribute towards University 3.0 and, of course, Industry 4.0. Of course, very recently, COVID happened, right? And I'll talk a bit about the impact of COVID. Many people think that it is disruptive. Well, it is, but more importantly, it has a catalyst effect, which I'll talk about in my latest presentation. So let me now tell you two stories. Two stories which I hope will help us to, if you like, start our mindsets and our frame of thinking. The first story regarding a very famous man. Now, many of you will recognize him, right? He is Professor Albert Einstein. Now, Professor Albert Einstein, of course, he was the man who came up with the equation E equals to mc squared. And to that, of course, he came into the atomic age, where inventions like the atomic bomb, helped to shorten the war. So after the war, he went back to academia, and he was at Princeton University. And while he was there, like you and me as a faculty, he has to take examination. So one day while he was proctoring the exam with the students, like what we do, it was today we call it invigilation. The students are taking the exam, and then the faculty will walk about, in the class to make sure the students are not cheating, or if they got questions regarding the exam paper, they'll be there to clarify or to advise. So the story is so that one day while he was doing this, one student put up his hand, and said to, and when Professor Albert Einstein went to him, he whispered, because it was the exam hall, he whispered and said to Dr. Einstein, he said this, the questions you have for this year, they are the same as last year. Now, if that happens to you or to me, we probably will need to explain to the dean or to the president of the university what went wrong. But this was Professor Albert Einstein, and he is interesting, and he gave a very good answer. He said this: yes, the question is the same, but this year the answers are different. And I think we are at this point in time, in our journey, that we realize that although our questions are the same as it has been for many, many years, the answers have changed with time. And this is a good time whereby we need to look into what we call the process of learning, relearning, and unlearning. Because the world is changing so fast, although things have not changed, things have also changed, right? For example, work has not changed, but jobs have. The needs of society are still the same, but how we do it have changed. And because of this, many of the questions that we have are the same, but the answers have changed. So that's the first point I want to make, that the answers that you will have today may not be the same or may need to change based on what is happening around us. The second story concerns another famous man. His name was Henry Ford. Henry Ford asked a very important question, all right? And I think this is a very good practice for educators, is to ask questions. Usually we ask questions to our students, through examination or in the course of our teaching. But sometimes it's good to ask questions to ourselves, all right? So that we are able to reflect and ponder and rethink if our questions have changed or if the answers to the questions that we have changed. So Henry Ford, being an entrepreneur, he asked a question to many people. He said this: if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Now, of course, Henry Ford asked the question why? Because he was thinking of something else to solve a same problem, to bring people from A to B, but in a different and more efficient way. And so he did what many of us would do. We have focus group or committees. And when we have committees to ask our fellow colleagues, what do you want? Many of them would say, I want to do this faster. I want to do this faster by maybe giving more manpower or giving more time or reduce my workload, right? So similarly, when Henry Ford was trying to look at transportation, he asked people, what do you want? And everybody say, hey, I want to go from A to B, but I want faster horses. But he has something else in mind, because in the mind of Henry Ford, he wanted to transform, to bring in a different mode of transport. He was the guy who invented or who commercialized the motor vehicle. And so in his mind, what he wanted was not what I will use the term for transfer. Transfer rather than transformation. Now, there is a difference between the two. A transfer, if you like, is an extension of what we have, and with the same method, but done it in a faster way. Transfer, for example, we do conduct tests, right, whereby we got to do marking, right? And marking takes a lot of time, and we got to do carefully. We cannot rush. Yeah. So many of us in our mind say, if I am asked, I would like a faster way whereby I can do assessment faster. And so what we have is online assessment. So instead of you doing the marking, the service will do the marking for you. For example, like MCQ, right? MCQ is a very fast way that computers can be used to do assessment. They can also randomize questions, change the answer order as well to prevent cheating. Excuse me. And so in our mind, we say, I want to do the same thing, but in a faster way. So online assessment is what we want. But more than that, I think we need to look into how we can transform, right, with the technology that we have, how we can transform assessment so that it can be beyond just answering questions. For example, if I even now with this technology have video questions that will help us, to look for students to look at case studies or to look at a video, make observations and thereby respond in a better way. So with this story, I want to ask all of us a question. Why do we need to do it? The why is very important because it is from here that we are able to say, because of this, therefore, I do that. In other words, we need to come back to the question of what is our purpose? Our purpose will not change. Right, since the day of the first university was started to today, our purpose of education in the university is to provide advanced knowledge, right? Is to train our young people so that they can add value to the community that they serve in industry, business, or government. That has not changed, right? But how we do it is important. And so when we look into the why, we realize that a lot of things have happened. And today, of course, we have COVID, right? And COVID, if you like, is a powerful change agent. Many of the changes that we see today has been result of COVID because of COVID is so disruptive that it impacts everyone. The guy who has a cafe or restaurant was happy in the past that people came to his store. Was happy that his place was crowded. But today, because of COVID, he cannot open his restaurant to people to sit in his restaurant. He has to go online and reinvent himself to provide food delivery. Thankfully, there are services like Grab, Panda, Deliveroo, and a few others who saw the opportunity. And what they did was to provide the link. So while the restaurant or the cafe cooks the food, they do not have to worry about delivery because another service came in to deliver the food. But that resulted in a change of their thinking. So what is the impact of COVID? There are many books and papers and articles written today about the impact of COVID on higher education, right? And there's one which I quite like, and this is the one that I like to recommend. It's a book written by Scott Galloway, and what I like about him is that he is an educator, right? So sometimes when we read articles, we try to look at the context of the background of the person because it is from there that we are able to look at the emotional as well as the professional and intellectual connection. So Scott Galloway is a professor in the US, and he wrote the book called Post-Corona, From Crisis to Opportunity. And I think this is a good book for us also to consider as we ask ourselves, so what is the impact, not just to education, but to society? But here's a chapter in there that talks about the impact to education. So the education, he says that, as well as for society, he says that the most impactful outcome of coronavirus is that it is an accelerant. Okay. In other words, it is the catalyst. Many things that took weeks, right, can now happen. Sorry, they can take decades. Can now happen in weeks. In the past, may take you about 2-3 years to get something done, but because of COVID, it now helps you to, or make it possible for things to be done quicker. More so because of leadership decisions and respond to a changing situation, and secondly because of opportunities that are noticed by people in business or the community, whereby they come up with services that will provide a solution. So, for example, before COVID, face-to-face classroom interaction was very common. Suddenly, because of COVID, when schools are closed, services like Teams and Zoom came into the picture to provide some kind of learning continuity so that when students learn at home, there was still a way for teacher and the students to reconnect. In the beginning, there was a lot of, if you like, challenges and friction, but of course, things are better along the way. So what we should know are two keywords. The COVID situation is both a catalyst, an accelerant, as well as provide opportunities for us to think or rethink how we can do things better and differently. There have been many studies that look into the change process. right? And this is one which I like, which I thought will be useful for our discussion. And what I'm trying to do here is to help us to look at the big picture. Many times when we are involved in a situation, we see the micro view, we see where we are right at a point in time in the timeline. But what I'd like to share with you is how we can look beyond that single point in time and help us to look at a big picture so that we can understand what is happening. Having such a big picture is very helpful for us to manage uncertainty as well as to prepare mentally for change and also look at what resources we need as we move ahead. This is a similar situation, as faculty, we are also in a similar situation. Our students see things at a point in time. This is year 2, week 1. This is what they need to do. And sometimes they do not see the whole journey, right? And because of this, they go through a lot of stress and challenges and trying to keep up. But as educator, as the lecturer or the professor in charge of the program, we see the whole journey. We know what's happening in week 1 to week 2, 3, 4, up to week 13 and the exam. And in fact, not just the semester, but for all the 4 years. And so because of this, we are able to manage the big picture better than the student. So my intent here is to help us to look at the whole big picture of the change process so that we understand where we are and what lies ahead. Now, in the J curve of change management by Satya, Virginia Satya, by the way, a lady, which I thought was very impressive because she's probably one person who's able to reflect and see the bigger picture, and she's documented this. She looked at the whole picture as where we are. Excuse me. This is status quo. This is where we are today, right? And things have been in a steady state, right? And then what happened was that a foreign element was brought into the situation, right? And the foreign element is called COVID, right? And this COVID created chaos, right? Chaos for many people because of uncertainty. And in some situations, as we respond, there'll be some up and some down, right? Down is tough, okay? But up is good. And after that, things go down again. And often what happened is this, because of the down experience in the chaos phase, sometimes the change agent or the change champion gets shot down. Right, this guy who came up with a good idea to come up, how to respond to a change, it caused too much disruption, and then he get dismissed or he lost his job. It happens, okay, because we do not have the stamina or the patience, or we got anxious, right? But that is actually very normal, right? There'll be ups and downs. And after a while, of course, things are better. And when you finally settle onto what we call the transforming idea, you see things getting better. And ultimately, things get become improved, and you see things going back to normal. And although it is normal, it is a different level of normalcy. Why? Because your new status quo is a level above, okay, the old state. Right? There is a change. Things have become better than what it was before the process started. Now, the Microsoft CEO, Professor, this man called Satya Nadella, he made an observation very early in the COVID cycle. He noticed this. He noticed that a lot of changes that used to take a long time, suddenly the cycle becomes shorter. From 2 years now into 2 months. Why? Because suddenly people realize that they need to change, the level of resistance go down, and change happen much faster. And of course, the change also has this chaotic period, but ultimately things get going. So COVID here is a very, very powerful change agent, right? It is so powerful that some people have given it a job title, right? And what they say is this: change has happened not because of the CEO or the president or the CIO, but it was because of COVID, right? COVID has been the powerful change agent, and because of it, things have changed. And looking back after 1 year of COVID, things have changed. Some will believe for the better. Now, there are some who still hope to go back to normalcy, but experts have said that that is unlikely to happen, right? So this thing about working from home during part of the week, it's going to be something that's going to be quite permanent. Right? So there will be some interesting news to other people. Also, in the context of change of University 1.0 to 2.0, personally, I went through that process, right? And in this context, University 1.0 was, if you like, the traditional campus. Students come to class, they go for lectures, go for tutorial classes, they attend labs, right? And here, when we want to look into how we can move to the next level, we need to, if you like, understand where we are so that we can go to where we want to be. And where we are at a point in time, as I look into development across industry, there were many things happening. All right. For example, we have a new group of students called the Gen Y. Gen Y do things differently from earlier generation. From very early stage, Gen Y had access to internet services that were free generally, like MySpace for those of us who are young enough, to Facebook. YouTube was around quite early. The impact of and access to such services on the World Wide Web was very disruptive. It created a new way whereby information can be made accessible, and there was a point whereby education can look at how we can harness or tap along. So rather than let industry go ahead or business move ahead and university remain where they are, that doesn't make sense. We came to a point whereby we ask ourselves, with all the changes that's happening in the world because of the internet and because of the student experience of the Gen Y, what can we do? And we realized that it was a good time for us to relook into our teaching model, one that is from teacher-centric to learner-centric. And the goal that we wanted to achieve, of course, is University 2.0. What will it be like and what should be in there? And these are some of the outcomes that we have today. All right, that if you go to many universities, including the one that I started the initiative, that there is a lot of self-directed learning. Right, the use of lecture capture. There's a lot of students now to go back and refer to what they've missed in the lecture time. Right, lectures, in my opinion, is going to continue. Although it is, there's a lot of debate about its usefulness. To me, it's still going to be the main source of transformation. The arguments is usually about is inefficacy because of students' concentration of 20 minutes. After that, the mind cannot focus so strongly. I'll talk a bit about that later on. So the lecture recording allows students to go back, and by so doing, they're able to, if you like, increase the benefit of the lecture. More about that later. We also allow us to explore new pedagogies. For example, like social constructivists. Okay, because of time, I will not be able to give examples, but we're into what we call students learning from each other, and students being co-content creators. We also established a faculty development program, and we also look into classroom redesign. Right, in NTU today, our students learn very differently. Our students sit in classes where they sit in groups rather than in rows, right? So I'll talk a bit more about that. Now, what I want to share with you is this. This journey took us 7 years, okay? 7 years from the point that we started e-learning to the point whereby we use the label of University 2.0. Under COVID, guess what? It might be shorter. Maybe it can be done in 7 months, right? Because people who have done it have gone through the learning curve, and they went through a chaotic phase, right? Today, you can just pick up from where they have where they are today, and it would like leapfrog the pains and the challenges which they face. And if you do it correctly, okay, as we have done, you find that you are able to have less chaos, right? So this chaos is actually much reduced, right? Because you're not a first starter, but you are learning from what people have done, and thereby you're able to leapfrog and do the change in a much easier way. So I'd like to share with you the response on what we can do and how we did it. Okay, and hopefully by so doing, your experience will be much shorter and smoother. All right, very much like we use the laws of physics, like gravity or Newton's law. We don't have to reinvent it. Now, once it's done, we apply it so that we are able to have new inventions. So the key to having a less chaotic change phase is to do things right first time. Now, this has to be a culture. In other words, this is something that drives what we do. We want to do things right first time, and it does not mean that we need to do things perfectly, but just to be aware that we need to think through. And because of the earlier journeys and experiences that are done by other people, those who come later on, what we call a follower, they will have a much easier time to get things done much quicker, right? So here, I want to share with you 4 key points on how to help us shorten the change curve. One is to, in the context of education, to look at how we can get our students to be more participative. Many of our students come to class, they sit in class, and we do not know whether they're engaged or not, right? So, and even when we know that they are not, sometimes we find hard to manage, not just through one week, but through all the 13 or 15 weeks of class, right? So what we want to do is we want to come out with a design whereby our students are participative in their learning from the first day to the last day. Secondly, not only do we want them to be participative, we want them to learn in groups. We want them to be collaborative. In other words, they learn on themselves as well as with other people. The third principle is we want to make sure that what we do is sustainable. Now, many learning innovations requires hard work, okay, and because of this, they're not sustainable. After 1 or 2 semesters, many professors give up because they find that it's too much effort. It works, but too much effort is required, and so they give up because now, in some institutions, they need to teach, they need to publish, they need to provide service to the industry as well. And so because of that, sometimes the teaching get compromised because it's too much work to innovate, right? So what we want to do, look at ways whereby teaching practices is sustainable. The last one is actually the most important, right? It must be professor friendly. That is very important because the professor is a starting point of what we want to do. If something that we want to do is not professor friendly, it will be very hard to sustain. And that is where sometimes initiatives get dropped because professors complain that it takes too much time, right? So with these 4 key thoughts, it will help us to visualize our direction on how we can bring change in the way that is participative for our students. Students work together and is sustainable not just through year by year, but across other disciplines as well. And importantly, professors find that they want to do it because it's easy for them to adopt and to apply. Right. Next question is, what can we do? What we learn is that once people know the why, the what is much easier, right? And the why can be summarized, okay, in 8 points here. So there are probably more, right? But these are the points that I thought, okay, something for us to think about to help us to get through. In fact, there's a 9th point which I'll mention in a minute. These 9 points includes understanding the change in student profile. This change of student profile in a way impact in the way they learn, and hence in the way we should teach. There's a shift in the paradigm shift. Okay, there's a shift in the way learning is done. Now more moving from teacher-centric to learner-centric. There's a lot of changes because of technology. There's what we call VUCA, the sense of velocity, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, right? Because of time, I will not be able to go into more detail, but it's something for us to understand, so that by understanding that this is happening, hence we need to do things differently. Technological trend, many of them which I mentioned just now, there's Industry 4.0. Now, point number 5, population profile. Now, this is interesting. I wish I had more time to talk about it, but because of limitation of time, I can't. All I want to say is that because people are living longer, the career span is going to increase as well. And with the changes that's happening in the world, we need to rethink how we can extend the productivity of people who now in the past they live up to 65. Today they go up to 85, right? So with the additional 20 years from 65 to 85, what are they going to do? Right? In the past, after 65, maybe at 70, 75, they leave the world, yeah. But today they stay longer, much healthier as well. What do we do? Right. Anyway, that's the talk another session. Then of course there's Industry 4.0, which result in a future of work being changed and the changes in the workplace. And last but not least, all right, there is a change in student expectation. Students are coming back with comments about how they feel the university have prepared them. I'll talk about that later on in the presentation. And last but not least, the big change is COVID. Right? COVID is the one that is forcing us, right, to rethink how we have done things previously. Okay. Right. So to help us to take the next step, okay, I'd like us to rethink the dimensions of quality. Quality is something that all of us are familiar with, yeah, but it's something that I'd like us to rethink because the answers have changed to this part. This was inspired, when Professor Tom Rees was invited to speak at our campus in 2008. And when he was there, he spoke to the faculty, and in the course of presentation, he asked a question, and the question was very simple. You as a lecturer, as the teacher, have taught the students, have they learned? But I remember that when he asked this question, there was silence in the lecture theatre, right? Because to many people, they have taught. But when they look at the bell curve after the exam, many of them have not learned. If they have learned, everybody will have scored full marks or near full marks, but with a spread. And this was where we realized that there is a need to rethink about how we create the learning experience. So a bit more about what I mean. Quality is something that we universities focus a lot on, right? We believe that we need to make sure that we do things well. And so we focus a lot on the quality of content, right? As well as in the resources that we use. In the past, there was textbook, which is why publishers like Wiley around will help us to fill the gap. We need good textbooks, and that is a given, right? In addition, we also realize that we need to look into the quality of teaching, right? We make sure our teachers are able to teach well so that they can deliver the content well. So with good teaching, the content gets delivered effectively. Yet, in spite of this, we realize that the bell curve that we have been getting has remained the same. Students do well and students do poorly, and many are in the middle of the bell curve. And this causes us to ask ourselves, is there something missing, right? And this is where we realize that maybe what we have done is that we have not seen the whole picture. And this is where we realize that maybe we should also ask ourselves, what have we missed out? And this is where we saw that we also need to look into the quality of the learning process. Okay, learning process. In other words, what is a student learning, right? And so based on what Professor Thornley have said, this is the part they have done well. You have taught them using good textbook, good material, and good teaching skills. But have they learned? Right? And the answer very often is that they have not. Well, not equally anyway. And so when we look at the bell curve, this is what we get. And you get the bell curve or spread. Students who have done well, students who have not, and many in the middle. Okay. Now, if we focus on the learning quality as well, then what will happen is that we will have a curve that looks like the blue one, where the results are more consistent, the results are better. All right, and what that means essentially is that the quality of students has become more consistent, and ultimately it means that the content has worked, the teaching has worked, and students have learned. All three parts are working, not just the first two parts. The second response that we have after looking at learning quality is to see how we can do it. And this is where we look into the new form of teaching and learning, and is to look into what we call the social constructivist learning pedagogies, where students are participative and they are also learning. In other words, are students learning? Now, to help us understand this, let's look into some perspective. This is what is happening, right? We got teacher, we got content, we got the learner, right? And in such a mode, what is happening is that the students are usually receiving, they are responding, and comes to examination, regurgitating, right? The teacher is the one that worked the hardest. That's why the circle is the largest. And then content is used. Good content, again, Wiley has very good, powerful content that we use in this context. And then the student is the receptor. Now, where the three circles converge is what we call the classroom. Okay, so this is the area that we are active in. All right, here is where the student, the teacher prepares, right, and this is where the student on his own do his own self-study. Right, where the converge is where learning takes place. So what is happening now is this, right? And I think many of us are not familiar, right? The content is still there. Now, good content is needed. Okay, I want to emphasize that, right? Good content is needed. And now, thankfully, there are alternative resources. You got e-content, okay? And again, publishers have recognized the need for such things. And so you got Wiley Plus, who now comes up with content that is provided to campuses across the whole campus, something that I thought was a very good and powerful step forward, to promote the use of good content that will result in the teaching experience. Because of the available e-content, students are able to engage such content directly. Now, what is interesting is this, because of ease of access to tablets, smart devices, or through PC, an interesting phenomenon has also arisen, which is quite powerful, and that is students are learning more and more from each other. Okay, so instead of depending on the teacher and content, now they are also learning from one another, and that is a good development, because this will result in students becoming self-directed and also to involve in content co-creation with one another. Okay. With that in mind, the question now is this: what can we do? What are the methods that we can consider? And what we realize is this: the use of interactive engagement has a very powerful outcome. When students use interactive engagement, and here the tools that we use a system called LAMS, which is the online system for student learning activities. The way we design our classrooms, where tutorial rooms are no longer students sitting in rows, but sitting together. The use of student response system, a field classroom, the students learn that way instead of the traditional method of lectures. The learning outcome is much better, and there have been many studies and evidence to indicate that. Okay. Because of time, I would like to move on to the next part here. All right. The next element, very important, is faculty development. Many of us although we realize that with the need to train our faculty, sometimes the resources that we have to put into them is not adequate, and because of the lack of training for our faculty, our teachers, or today we use the word upskilling or reskilling, teaching them to use new methods because they are not there. It has resulted in them not being able to adopt as so well, right? Many of us are in COVID realized that when we started pushing courses on Zoom, on Teams, on use of other teaching elements, because of the increase of those training sessions, it resulted in a change. So likewise, if you've done it well, you have big numbers of training, and that is very, very important, right? Because it will then allow teachers to be empowered and able to make the changes more effectively. Without training, they can use the tool but will not have its full impact. The other important element, and this is something which I feel that many institutions have not responded, and that there's a need to relook into teaching appraisal. So let me give an example of what we have done. Okay, we recognize that what measures get done, right? This is a very strong motivation. If you measure something, it will be done. And many of institutions, they use teaching feedback, for our students. After the class has been taught, teaching feedback is given to the students to fill in a form either online or on paper. And what's interesting is that the same form is used for all courses, whether you teach a course in science, humanities, the arts, literature, medicine, or whatever it is. Usually the same form is used. He has some core questions, and then there's an open section whereby students give some comments. We realize that this form will not work, right? Because if you use this form, nothing changes. Because if teachers are appraised on teacher feedback, then they will still do the same thing. If they have done, there's use of this form. Excuse me. So what we have done is to redesign the form. So we still have questions, but these are now the core questions. These are the core questions which are asked by the students. Okay, I think we have a slide. Okay, I see that the slides are not progressing in the same order. I've jumped some slides. Okay, but let me continue. Yeah, so there's a core questions which are which is that's common for all faculty. These are questions about their teaching, about their engagement. Okay, just 4 questions. Then we still have the open section whereby students can comment. But what we have done is to add a third section, and this third section is a question. Is a question that lecturers can choose from a pool of approved questions, right? Meaning that this, due to the way they teach, we have created a pool of questions whereby they can choose the questions that will recognize their teaching. So, for example, a lecturer like to use projects, okay, or field studies, or they like to do case studies or student presentation. They like to use that because they feel that this is the way they want the students to learn, that will help them to understand it better. Now, without the questions, feedback questions to recognize the different methods of teaching, right? What they do will not be recognized. And because it's not recognized, it's not measured. And it's not measured, what should they do it? So what we have done is we have allowed a elective pool of questions to be selected by the lecturer based on his teaching. So a lecturer, like I said, who do field studies, right? He will choose questions from a pool of approved questions about what are the things they have done in the field studies that will help the students to recognize and establish the value of his contribution. So by so doing, there is reason why the lecturer will say, okay, I will do it, and he will get recognition, right? So this is a very important change agent that will get people to innovate and be recognized for their innovative ways of teaching. So let me now come into University 3.0. What is it and what are we doing it? And University 3.0 looks into the future of work, into future readiness, and to make sure that we are Industry 4.0 compatible. Okay. Now we recognize that, that in the future of work, there's jobs are going to be different. All right. A lot of the jobs which are manual and routine has now been computerized. And a study that was done by the World Economic Forum asked the question, what are the skill sets that we need for our future employees? And in 2015, they came up with a long list. Okay, and when they're into the long list, many of them are soft skills. And by the way, many of them are outside your subject syllabus. 2020, when they did the survey again, the same similar outcome. Some of the skill sets have risen in importance, but again, these are skill sets which are outside the syllabus. And what we recognize today is this, right? Today's soft skills are tomorrow's hard skills, right? These are the soft skills that they want. They want people who are able to solve problems, critical thinkers, creative. They want people with good EQ, right? They want people who are able to think flexibly, right? Are these things in the syllabus? Answer is no, right? And so question therefore lies in, are we preparing students for the future? So what is happening is today, the workplace employees expects the new graduate to be work ready, right? It doesn't matter whether you are MIT, Harvard, Monash, NUS, NTU, or even the polys, whatever schools I'm going to put in there. This is what workplace employers want, all right? It is recognized, it is established, yeah, but the question is, are we doing it well? Now, many institutions think that they're doing a good job. As I mentioned earlier, when the survey was done, right, way back in 2018 in Singapore, which is supposed to be quite ahead in such at the age of change and progress. Interestingly, only 39% felt that they were not prepared. Okay, before they start work, 33% thought that they were prepared, and by the time they started work, that number dropped to 39% because they realized that once you go to work, wow, I'm not ready for work. The university didn't prepare me. Only 60%. Okay, sorry, only 40% said that they are prepared. So there's something for us to think about. And why is that? Because we have, if you like, not changed the way we thought, and our methods have not changed. And this was brought up way back in 2017 by George Monbiot in a Gardner article. He says that in the age of robots, schools are not teaching our students to be redundant. Now, Jack Ma from Asia, okay, I use Jack Ma because he's from Asia, so I think it's something here. He said this, we cannot teach our kids to compete with machines, right? Why choose him? Besides him being an Asian, Jack Ma was also a teacher, right? And so he's able to recognize that, what we are doing, we need to rethink, because if we continue to teach our kids the same way, then eventually they can compete with machines and hence become disconnected with industry. Studies have shown, and this has been quite well established through multiple studies, that there is a disconnect between the way we prepare our students for industry and what is needed by the employee in industry. Okay, so let me now go into the what, right? So we can go into University 3.0. And then after that, we shall open for questions. Right. So these are the various services we have done. Like I said, this took us 7 years to do. In today's context, this probably can be done within a year, right? With the right resources, can be done within a year in your campus. So let me talk about University 3.0. So in University 2.0, we were able to achieve self-directed learning. We were able to achieve group learning, participative and collaborative learning. Now, University 3.0, what is it? Okay, University 3.0, and this is the insight which I learned when I worked at Taylor's in Malaysia. It's about holistic education and learning outcomes. Now, many institutions are looking at learning outcomes today. That's a good start. Give you my viewpoint of what I think it is. Okay, so if you like, the pillar number 5, okay, is on the paradigm of holistic education. It's not new, yeah, but something that is work in progress for many of us. Now, this is a good response to Industry 4.0 because, like I said just now, employers are looking for skill sets which are outside the syllabus. It should start from K-12 to higher ed, okay, and it will involve a rethink on not just what we teach, but how we teach, and that requires a mindset of faculty thinking. A lot of things, at the end of the day, depends on the faculty. The touch point between the content and the student is the faculty. In other words, all of us here, right? How our students learn depends on us, okay? So in this context, the big picture, we got academic excellence, which is what we are very familiar with, life skills, and now I want to add a third circle, emotional well-being, right? And to put it into analogy, these are the head, the hands, and the heart. Lifelong learning, life-wide learning, and life deep learning. So let me explain. Okay. Well, in today's context, there is a focus on academic excellence. All right, and because of 21CC, we start bringing in life skills as well, right? Whereby we get our students to be more communicative, to do presentations. Previously, it was just lectures, exam. We also get them to look into problem solving, into critical thinking as well. Now, what is not in there? Insisting on emotional well-being, about values, ethics, EQ, empathy, and inclusiveness. Something that industry requires, and I think COVID have highlighted the need and rethink the focus on emotional well-being. So this is what we see. Right now, to get to that final state, it's a journey whereby we are able to integrate all three of them together. Right. So today, this is where we are. Right. We are able to put some life skills into academic excellence. But what we want to do is, if you like, to merge the three of them more and more, so that ultimately we're able to do all three of them together as part of the learning experience. So that when the students go to campus, they learn not only about academic excellence from your lecturers, from the teachers, but they also develop life skills on how to get along with people, teamwork. And they also now incorporate emotional well-being, not as outside the classroom, but as part of the classroom. So that's why when we put our students into clusters, do tutorial classes, they start looking into how they can work together. How can they resolve conflict within the subgroup? And we do this through these approaches, right? The way we design the learning, the way we bring authentic, especially learning through mobile devices, look into learning outcomes, and also measure how well they're doing it, and also the design of learning spaces. Okay, so we also recognize that the circles and the focus of the various domains will not be equal for all disciplines. Okay, so for somebody in the service industry, for example, like teacher training, all right, there'll be a lot of development on the social, emotional well-being part. Right, for somebody who's on the research track, the excellence, the kind of excellence would be the domain that would be much stronger. Okay, with more focus on thinking skills, critical thinking. Right. So here we have, if you like the diagram again, three of them, three circles, which are going to be part of the University 3.0 experience. And the question is this: is this all? Well, there is a fourth circle, and we call that meta learning, whereby the students is able to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And this talks about lifelong learning, whereby with the fast change of technology that's happening around the world, this is something that we want and that we need. Okay, right now I come towards the end of my near the end of my time now. So let me go through this quite quickly. So again, we are going to see the same change curve, right? From where we are today, University 2.0 to go to 3.0. It's going to be a journey, all right? And we need to recognize that this journey will take us through challenges that we hope will bring us to a process whereby our students will be future ready. How long would that take? We do not know, but these are something that I want us to think about. So to help us in this journey, I'd like to share with you some quotes which I think will help us. All right, and this is one given by Kurt Vonnegut. He says this: a step backwards after making a wrong turn is a step in the right direction. So the need to unlearn and redo is part of the change process, right? The other quote which I want to mention is this: many times we ask ourselves, hey, do we have evidence? And sometimes it takes too long to get the evidence. So the focus should be on improve rather than prove, right? When once we're able to improve, the proof can come later. Because by the time we want to prove, it might be a bit too late. So the question which I want to ask all of us, okay, and I almost now to my last slide is this: what kind of university do we want? A good university or a great university? Well, what's the difference? A good university teach, a great university will transform. And that's what we are here for today. With that, I thank you. And I know I've run a bit out of time, but I'm open for questions. So Horace, you'd like to take the floor?
Thank you, Dr. Daniel Tan. That was a very thorough and insightful presentation, and I hope everyone find what you shared very insightful as well. So we definitely hope that we have more time, but unfortunately we have maybe like 10 to 15 minutes for question and answer. We have quite a number of questions that was posted by the audience here, so perhaps I'll pick up 3 questions, and hopefully Dr. Daniel Tan can offer some insights into some of these questions. So the number 1 question here with the most number of likes would be, now that we are having classes online, how can we tackle the part of participation? Any ideas to engage students using online platforms?
Okay. Yes. Okay. So this goes back to the this is a good question. All right. It's a question that I've been asked many times. Huh? So this goes back to this slide here. You can see the slide. Yeah. Now, many classes today are online, and it is what we call a transfer. We cannot meet our students online, face to face. So we put it onto the Zoom classroom. And we recognize that when we talk to students on Zoom or on Teams, sometimes students switch off because, staring at the screen is very boring after a while. And not only that, studies have shown that when you focus on the screen for too long, it sort of, result in what we call pixelation effects. They see things that, if you like, blur their vision. Okay, and that is part of the problem of watching too long on the screen. So the question is, how do you engage them? So what you can do is to create what we call learning activities. Okay, in other words, the question you should ask is this: instead of saying, today I'm going to teach a class A, B, C, and D, right? That is traditional. So what we can do is this: today I'm going to teach A, B, C, and D, and in the addition, ask this question: what can I do so that students can learn A, B, C, and D better? Okay. Now, once we flip that question, we are moving from what we call a instructivist to constructivist mindset. So by asking the question, what can I do so the students can learn better, we start thinking, say, okay, to help them, I will break them into small groups to do assignments, or I can ask a quiz, or I can do this learning activity, or ask them to do a presentation, or ask them to talk, or break them into small groups, right? So once we ask the different question on what can I do so they can learn better, it takes us to the next step of creating activities whereby they are engaged, so that the end objective is they learn better. Okay, so that is the part that we can do, moving from just Teams or Zoom classroom into activities. All right. Now I'd like to go more into it, giving you examples, but because of time I can't. Maybe John Wiley may organize another seminar whereby I will give you solid examples on how we can able to do it in a way that is participative, collaborative, sustainable, and very importantly, teacher friendly. All right. Next question.
Thank you, Dr. Tan. So the next question with the most like would be, as educators, how can we keep updated for the rapid changes impacting higher education?
Yeah. Okay, good question again. And the answer to that is today there are many ways of doing it. In fact, too many. Right. One way is, of course, to read what is happening in the news. With Google, you're able to learn more. Okay. But what can be done at the campus level? And this is, like I said, I go back to this point. Okay, it is at the campus level. There should be a team or a center that will contextualize all that's happening out there into something that is useful and relevant to your campus. Right. So setting up a center for teaching and learning, or having a group, or being led by senior staff, maybe the provost or deputy provost, to look into what we can do for teaching and learning for the whole campus, will help to filter, and select what they deem as necessary and useful. Secondly, talk to the experts out there, the people like the publishers. One thing about publishers is that they're in talking to many people at the same time, across different countries. And so when they talk to them, they're also hearing what they are doing, and they also see what they're doing, and they can bring case studies or lessons to across different campuses. Right. So the publisher like John Wiley and other publishers, they are a good resource of what is happening, that is working, that other people are doing. Okay. And after you know what is need to be done, then you do it. Since we're on this topic, let me tell you a story which I hope will get us to realize the importance of training. The story is told of a woodcarter. Okay, woodcarter who has a very powerful arms and a good axe. On a given day, he can chop 5 trees better than many people can chop 2 trees a day. 5 trees a day, double the average. Because of his reputation, one day a salesman came to him and said, "Woodcarter, I am a salesman. I sell the electric saw, right? The chainsaw that will help you chop more trees. And today you can chop 5 trees. With a chainsaw, you can chop 20 trees." The woodcarter was happy because he wants to improve his productivity. And many of us, he bought a chainsaw. 2 weeks later, the salesman came to him and asked, "How are you doing?" The woodcarter looked very sad. He said, "With my axe, I can chop 5 trees. With your chainsaw, I can only chop 1 tree a day." The salesman was surprised. "What do you mean? Show me your chainsaw." And by taking a chainsaw, the salesman pulled a cord, and the woodcarter asked the question, "What's that noise?" Now, what is happening is this. The salesman thought that the woodcarter will know how to use a chainsaw, but instead, the woodcarter was using the chainsaw the same way was using the axe. And so when you use the chainsaw as an axe, your productivity goes down. And that is what is happening in many campuses. Many teachers, educators, faculty are using the chainsaw like this. They're using the PC, or the laptop, the tablet in the same way they were teaching in the past. And so with the new enhancement, the impact was reduced. And they complained that e-learning or the tools does not work. Okay, so we need to hear the noise. Yeah, and this is where campuses should have a group of people who train the faculty, a good group. The better equipped and the more effective this group of people will be to transform teaching and learning, right? So, hope that story will be powerful and help you to answer the question. Last question.
So thank you, Dr. Tan. The last question here with the most like now would be, in your opinion, what are the significant changes that need to be made by the academic libraries at this point in time?
Okay, yeah, the libraries, okay, libraries are all what we call resources. Okay, having good resources is important, right? And I will say that everything starts with good resources. Okay, good resources combined with good teaching, these are the starting point. And today, what we need to do is the learning activities. All right, so we need to combine the three together. All right, so that we are able to come out with not just content quality, teaching quality, but learning quality as well. Now, at the end of the day, the touch point is learning quality. All right, if you have good content, good lecturer, poor learning quality, you won't get the outcome. If you got good teachers, lousy quality, your learning experience will also not be there, right? So you need to do all three together, so that by combining the three, you have more than the parts, right? So this is where you look for good content, and I believe that YD Plus today, they are able to package multiple resources, campus-wide. That to me is a very good step forward, because it's always the big challenge. But once you solve that, next one is faculty development, chopping X, and then looking into learning activities, which is the learning quality. Do all three, and your students will benefit, and they will learn better, offline, online, face-to-face, or on the internet. Horace?
Now, thank you, Dr. Tan. Thank you very much. And we have come to the end of the webinar today. We really appreciate, if you could take a moment to fill out our 2-minute survey using the link or by scanning the QR code on the screen. You will immediately have access to the slide handouts upon the completion. Also, please look out for our follow-up email that will alert you on the on-demand recording of today's webinar. And on behalf of Wiley Education Asia, I would like to thank Dr. Daniel Tan for the insightful session, and everyone for taking the time to join us in today's session. We hope to see you in the future sessions. Stay safe, stay well, and have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, and all the best to all of you as we work together through COVID-19. Stay safe, and maybe all prosper together during this time.